Welcome to Uncanny X-Minutes, where we bring you the comics behind the movies. I'm Sasha.
I'm producer James.
And we're here to talk about X2, X-Men United, minutes 30 through 40.
Ooh, getting into right past the first act? I don't know. I mean, it's getting heated.
A little bit. I feel like it's ramping up faster than the first movie.
Yes.
So
agreed.
What happens in these minutes, James?
Wolverine can't sleep. Professor X visits Magneto in his plastic prison, and the X-Mansion's attacked.
Dun, dun, dun.
Bum, bum, bum. It doesn't finish either. It's not all in these 10 minutes.
Yes.
That's when you know things are heating up.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about
the kid changing channels.
Okay. What do you want to talk about that, James?
I want to talk about it because anytime they have like a featured character, I'm always like, is that a reference I don't know? Spoiler alert, it's not. His name is Jones.
Don't know who that is.
Because they made him for the movie.
Yeah. Why?
I don't know. There's
so many X-Men.
I know.
There's so many. They're not even just X-Men. There's so many mutants that
Right.
you could just pull them. I don't.
And there's a lot with like electric powers, or they say his power is technopathy. Technopathy.
When we were watching it, I was like, "Is that Cypher?" I was trying to find a way. I was like, "Is there like a communication thing between the remote and the TV?"
Nope.
Like, no, it's not.
Or maybe he's telekinetic and he's just pushing the buttons.
Yeah.
No.
I would get no.
Nope. His name is Jones. That's
poor Jones.
I just wanted to put it out there that is not a reference.
Yeah, we're not just
because it
we're
really
not skipping
feels
on
like
you.
it should be.
So many other things, like even just like the names of all of the characters on the list or whatever.
Right.
Like you would think that this would
list.
be right. Who would you want it to be?
Oh, I would rather it be like a little Polaris.
Oh, a little magnet.
Maybe a little green-haired girl,
I like that.
just like manipulating the TV.
That's a good one. I like that. I think that would have been cute. There's so many characters that could have been, but it's not. So that's fine, I guess. It just seems weird. It's like we don't need to invent mutants. We've got a lot of them.
I know. Or if you're going to invent a mutant, you can do it in like how Batman the Animated Series invented Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
Do something interesting.
Here's
a new character for a reason.
It's crazy to me that not to just go too far off into the deep end of DC, which is completely out of my depth. But Harley Quinn is so iconic and so important, is absolutely jarring to me. I knew that she wasn't invented in the comics, but I've like retconned that in my brain many times.
Like so many people
that
have.
it is. Yeah.
Yep.
She's the best character.
She was created for the animated series.
Anyway. So the kid changing the channel.
That was it.
He also gets I mean, that whole thing leads up to the mansion getting invaded.
Yes.
And Wolverine getting a beer in the kitchen or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
But so which do you want to talk about first, though? I guess.
I mean, I feel like
probably should talk about the attack first.
Yeah, the attack I think is
the thing about the X-Mansion is I feel like more often than not it's destroyed
a lot,
which we're not going to talk about because a destroyed X-Mansion happens in another movie. Mm-hmm. So this time it's just attacked.
Okay.
And I looked up the first time it was ever attacked.
Ooh. Okay. What is is that Magneto?
No, Magneto doesn't attack the X-Mansion.
Interesting.
It's Juggernaut.
Oh.
In issues 12 and 13. Producer James here. Slight correction to what I'm about to talk about. The first time the X-Mansion was actually attacked happened in issue number 3, even earlier with the Blob. The Blob ended up getting a bunch of carnies to come help him attack the X-Mansion. So the X-Mansion's being attacked by the Blob, a bunch of carnies, and animals. So the Beast fights a gorilla, Cyclops blasts an elephant, and Iceman has an altercation with a giraffe. That happens in X-Men number 3. Sorry for the slight inaccuracy, but the Juggernaut story is still solid. Now, back to the show. We get the origin of Professor X. Like his more of his backstory of his personal life and his father passing. And so his father dies and his like business partner, his like scientific partner is Dr. Marco. Mm-hmm. He wants money and marries Professor X's mother.
Yeah, because reminder, Professor X's
loaded.
family is loaded. That's why they have their own planes and stuff.
He marries her. He moves in. He's got a son. His son is named Kane Marco. Mm-hmm. Kane Marco is a bully. like just straight out. He's just a bully. He's a mean kid. And his dad's like, well, you're going to ruin things, so I'm going to put you off into military school or private
Something
school.
like
I forget
that.
which one
Boarding
it is.
school.
Boarding school. Go away.
Yeah.
So,
you're ruining my evil plan to take this woman's money.
And at this point, Charles Xavier has powers, so he knows what's going on.
Imagine that conversation. As you're saying this, I remember I have read this. Imagine that. Like, you are telepathic.
Yeah.
Your mom's boyfriend is trash.
It's like twirling his mustache.
But you're also a teenager who has lost their dad, and like no one is gonna believe you.
No
one's gonna believe you. Like,
not
everything that you're gonna say sounds like a kid who just like is having a hard time adjusting. Yeah, right. Like, it's like, how do you explain it?
Yeah, an only child all of a sudden has an older brother.
Right.
Like, yeah, of course you have a problem.
I feel kind of bad for him.
Fast forward to they're in the Korean War together, both Kane Marco and Charles Xavier. They find the gem of Sidorak, which is what turns him into the Juggernaut.
Yes, he's not a mutant.
So he's not a mutant.
Yeah.
Even though in that same issue, Cerebro built into a desk goes off because there's mutants nearby. So they are already, this is just Stanley not knowing what he's talking about.
Do
it's
about
fine.
it. Yeah.
Who cares? So
somebody else was in the background somewhere.
Yeah.
Forget Me Not was there.
Yeah,
there
we
it
go.
is.
There we go. He was just hanging out like, yo, I said I was going to go prune the rose garden and now we're yelling at me again.
Yeah.
So he gets collapsed into like a cave collapse from grabbing it and turning into the Juggernaut. And apparently it takes him years to like uncover himself and come back to the United States to attack Charles. And that's when it happens in this. So they have the X-Men making perimeter defenses in 5 minutes, it said.
Yeah.
A bunch of things in 5 minutes, which once again, it would take longer. That's fine. That's neither here nor there. This is Silver Age comics. We kind of hand wave a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And basically, Charles Xavier tells this entire story as a like unseen Juggernaut goes through all of the defenses. They're like, oh, he went through the ice wall. Well, let me tell you more about what he's about. Yeah. Instead of being like, this guy is magical and you can't stop him if he starts moving. Here's his weaknesses. It's like, let me tell you about my traumatic childhood.
It's very Professor Xavier. It really is. It's like, let's make this about me.
He does. And they defeat him, like, but he like tears up a bit of the grounds and the building, and yeah.
I want to point out, Juggernaut is similar to Magneto in a way where like he has like the helmet.
Yes.
Like, this is also
it's
a
part
character.
of the gem of Sidorak.
Yes, and it prevents the kind of psychic intrusion. You get a lot of the same stuff with Juggernaut as you do with like the early Magneto stuff, where it's like, knock his helmet off so Professor X can get to him, kind of thing. It's
Except for
similar.
Juggernaut's helmet always looks like it's like bolted on, but it never is.
It's not. You can pull it off. It looks like it's on. It's not though.
No.
Yeah, it's just little. It turns into like this little disc. It's so big. Not to go on again. Not to go.
It's
on
ridiculously big, and I love it. And they don't do it for the X-Men 3 Juggernaut. They give him more of like a Magneto helmet, which is a
mistake.
It's fine.
It needs to
whatever.
be like basically a giant salad bowl.
Right. Well, that's kind of what they do for Deadpool.
Yeah, which it looks better.
It looks way better in Deadpool.
Anyway,
so that's the first time the mansion has been attacked.
I like that. I like that concept. I like that. I didn't think about the first time it got attacked. I would never have thought of that. So I'm glad that you pulled that up. I do remember those issues, but
it's so early. It's number 12.
The time that stands out to me that it kind of reminded me of was actually really similar. It was the Purifiers attacking the X Mansion.
Okay.
Luckily for all of the kids that were going to school there.
Which era is this?
So this is when Emma Frost and Cyclops are running the school.
Okay.
So I think it's disassembled. I think it's like after something like that. I don't know exactly when. I should have pulled that up. But basically, they are at the school and there's like huge protests. The school is still kind of undercover. It's really similar actually to the movie where I think maybe the movie and this was kind of similar time where it's like they're like protesters and people out there and like people think that they're mutants and it's like, no, this is like, these are children, they're going to school. And like that's kind of Emma Frost's thing where she's there standing there being like, no, these are children, like how
leave them alone.
But there is like this huge mix of both protesters and like kind of militarism that is like kind of inciting them. It's not exactly the same as the movie where it's
the movie, it's like a military
like in the school
invasion.
Yeah.
Knocking down doors and tranking mutants and dragging them out.
Right. They don't go that far, but there is, I think later in the series, like there are casualties, like people do end up dying.
And that's the thing with a lot of the attacks on the X-Mansion. It isn't a military extraction. It is search and destroy.
And I think that in the comics it's a little bit more like that. The students are there. They're not as much of a defense because in the movie it's basically really Wolverine and everybody kind of leaving like
Colossus almost could back him up,
right?
But he ends up being
he offers
but he's more like, you protect the kids,
right? And
which
like,
makes sense.
It needs to be a two front, like if the kids just run, there's no Colossus, like they need the muscle, right? They need to defend, so it makes sense. In this it's still very much Emma Frost and Cyclops kind of the front, but they're also kind of doing it from like a political perspective until the Cuckoos get tired of the nonsense and then like do some psychic whammy. So like they kids,
often do get sick of nonsense, don't they?
Yeah, they do. So and then she also kind of put the Cuckoos are there, so those are Emma Frost's teen clones. That's about as much defense as we get from that era. But I do think it's like, it reminded me a lot because it's very similar to the reasons why the school was attacked. That's like very similar to that attack in the comics, which I thought was really interesting.
For me, it was funny because I was doing research of like, when has it been attacked? And I started writing out a bunch of issues and starting to read them. And then I realized that I had already read one of them.
Really?
Yeah, it's in the new X-Men run by Grant Morrison, where, oh boy, Cassandra Nova, who is Charles Xavier's twin he ate in your utero?
Yeah. Oh man. Do you want to talk about Cassandra Nova before we go too far?
I mean, it doesn't, I don't want to. I think that's a whole separate conversation we may need to have at a different time. I don't want to go. We've got other things to talk about today.
Well,
so
there's the short of it, I suppose.
She is also psychic. She is she's body swapped with, because she got a body and is body swapped with Professor X and has gotten the Shi'ar like super guardians to attack the school. And so it is the students trying to stand up, some of them, because they're just like, well, we're sick of running.
Yeah.
But it's mostly like more your heavy hitters trying to take them out and having no luck until they can change the whole battle to be like, it's not Charles.
Right.
Like they have to, because Lilandra's being mind controlled by Cassandra.
Right.
But it was funny because I had literally just read that and it didn't even pop in my mind until I was reading the description. I was like, oh, that's right. That happened.
Did happen.
Yeah. Once again, a lot of these, there's not a whole lot of destruction. Juggernaut had a bit because they like dug a hole underneath him and then he dug his way back out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But there's not a whole lot of destruction. It is mostly trying to there's usually a purpose for why they are trying to do what they're doing.
Got it.
But yeah.
The other time I could think of an invasion, and this actually had a lot more kids defending the school. This is when the school is the Xavier Institute for Mutant Education Outreach. This is under Kitty Pryde in New York City. And in those issues, they're purifiers again. So like
those purifiers.
I was pulling a lot of the strike because the purifiers are strikers.
They're like religious military.
Yes. They have like the big crosses, the white crosses on them.
They look like they're on a crusade.
They really do. They're dressed that way, kind of, but like modern tactical gear, but with the same vibes of a crusader.
Yeah.
And they invade the school. It's in Generation X, the newer issues, if I remember correctly, because Quentin Quire is actually one of the teachers at the school for that.
So it is like more
he's
recent,
like in between. Yeah, so it's a newer issues, the newer issues of Generation X, and they are giving tours of the school. Like the kids are there. This is when they're taking that group of misfit kids from Wolverine and the X-Men and like kind of giving them their own little issue to like talk to each other and try to grow or whatever. And like you get the purifiers there and they are invading the school. And it's kind of like it's very modern military because like basically they're like hiding themselves with civilians to do the tours of the school, and then they like have like bombs strapped to them, and it's like crazy stuff. The kids are defending themselves from the purifiers because the teachers like Kitty Pryde and everybody else are outside in the grounds fighting them, but then they're like, oh, one is missing, and so you have the kids defending on the inside of the school. The school does not get destroyed, but it's like it gets a little bleak in there. Yeah It's good though. I liked it. It was like more kind of modern. It felt more of like a terrorist attack than a military attack.
Yeah, because like with the Cassandra Nova attack, that's more like superpowered aliens coming at them.
Yeah.
And the kids are underprepared for that. Like even one of them, they're going to be struggling against.
Yeah.
And so that one's more terrorist.
And it's also really interesting because like a big part of like the issue that the kids have is that they're kind of, they want to be X-Men, but they don't feel like they can hack it. And they're kind of in this group of kids that they think won't make it to be X-Men. They're going to have to do something else with their life. But
not combat ready.
Right. But they kind of are, and they kind of search out these combat situations. And so they're a little bit more prepared, unlike the students in the movie where like they're just running. Like these teens are not running.
The movie School is a school.
Yeah.
Like it is more of a school than some iterations of the school. The last one I have myself is from one of our favorite runs, Wolverine and the X-Men.
Love that one.
And we have talked about it before, and it's when the young Hellfire Club, the youths of Hellfire Club, attack the school on day one of reopening by creating their own Krakoa and putting it in literally the school grounds.
Yeah.
And it attacks them. And this one, actually, I feel like there is a fair amount of damage, but because it's so futuristic feeling and they end up befriending Krakoa, that it ends up not being an issue.
No, I didn't bring this up because I can't keep talking about Wolverine and the X-Men, but I could find an example of everything in Wolverine and the X-Men. Like it's so
but that's still a fun one though.
It's really great. I like that.
Because we have, as many times as we've described the X-Mansion being attacked as a school, it is completely different circumstances every time.
Yeah.
So
and the circumstances are probably like people have issues with the X-Men. Sometimes there are other mutants or like bad mutants or whatever, however you want to phrase that. But then a lot of times, like in the movie, there is still like the Purifiers, especially the Purifiers do a lot of attacking.
That's probably the closest one to the movie.
Yeah, I think so too. The first Purifier one.
Right.
Like the Purifiers seem like they're like especially used, I think, with the kids, like the more defenseless students at the school, because they're so. Part of the thing is that their hatred is so blind that like these like it's really contrasting for writers to put them against like pretty helpless like literal children and to make to draw that parallel. So the movie, by using the purifiers in that way, does really track with the general vibe of the comics around them.
Except for they stripped all religious reasoning from they're basically, you're right, they are the purifiers in the movies, but they're not.
I keep forgetting that they
sucks.
did drive. They told I forget in the movie they strip
he's
it.
100% military.
Yeah, but let me tell you, those are the purifiers.
Those are the purifiers.
I can't.
They should have huge crosses.
That's just
on them.
what they are. They were cowards in the movie.
I'll be honest with you. I bet you they just didn't know when they were making it. Like they probably didn't think of it. Like a lot of this stuff, it's like we were talking off mic about how often it is that writers just don't read the comics, which is fine. I guess you don't want to be you don't want it to change what you're going to write, but at the same time, like you need to know what you're writing.
Yeah,
they should.
They
couldn't do it. They couldn't do it at the time.
They didn't push it a little bit further. The teeth was taken out of it.
But that's how you make a popular movie. Because if the villain in X-Men 2 in 2003 was overzealous Christians, that movie wouldn't do so well. But you can put it in the comics. It's been used before. You know, they're you just go, well, we did it in the 80s, so we're just bringing them back.
The bite on it,
You're right.
The bite on it though would have been great. Anyway,
the other scene in this movie, or in this like section of 10 minutes, that I find very interesting is actually a conversation between Bobby and Logan, so Iceman and Wolverine, about
It's kind of like a minor thing where he's just Wolverine kind of asks like, how does it work between you and Rogue if you can't touch?
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like, I don't know, we make it work. And it made me think like, yeah, I mean, in the comics, it's not Iceman and Rogue.
No.
It's never been Iceman and Rogue. It never will be Iceman and Rogue.
No, definitely not now.
Definitely not now that Iceman's gay.
Yeah, and Rogue is married.
And who is she married to?
Gambit.
So we wanted to take a bit to talk about Rogue and Gambit.
My true OTP.
Should we start with them? Because we have another couple we were thinking about talking about.
Yeah, we got to start with Rogue and Gambit because these are the ones that, listen, these are the people the listeners want to hear about. We're going to talk about Chamber and Husk, and that's fine. I'm excited to talk about it, but you guys are not as excited to talk about them as we are about Rogue and Gambit. And let's be fair.
Well,
that's fine.
And that's the thing. If you watch the animated series, you know Rogue and Gambit are a couple.
Yep.
And they've been a couple for quite some time.
A long time.
And it is in the comics, too, which is nice. And it's just a shame that could not transfer to the movies, and that's fine. They started a thing. It's whatever.
Yeah.
We're not here to critique that. We're here to tell you what you're missing.
Yeah. Rogue and Gambit, the tension, the will they, won't they tension, the Jim and Pam of it all, if you will, is the fact that Rogue is very, very nervous about entering a relationship with somebody because of her powers. Her inability to physically touch someone. She, in the first couple issues where they are, like, the first interactions between her and Gambit, and, like, it's a kind of about that. She's just like, I like you, but I'm nervous because what happened to Cody. You can go back to our Rogue episode.
We'll tell you all about Cody.
The original X-Men movie, kind of the first episode I think that we put out. You know, she hurt somebody when she was a kid, and she doesn't want to hurt Gambit. Gambit does not care. He's like, I am ready to risk my life for you, babe. Like, he does not. He's like, he's committed. He says, fine, we won't touch, like, whatever. He is just down from the beginning. It is kind of similar to Iceman in the movies, in which, like, you can kind of tell the hesitation and the nervousness comes really from Rogue, whereas in the comic books, Gambit is pretty much committed from the beginning.
I mean, in both instances, too, the man has not gone through the experience. Mm-hmm. The woman has. And and Rogue still, like, a power that they are part of her power that they don't often remind you of. She's going to retain the memories of Cody. She still has Cody with her.
Yeah.
And so she has a constant reminder of what happened.
Yeah.
These guys do not have that.
They don't have to live with that.
No.
And
if something went wrong, they still don't really have to live with it. She
would
does.
have to. Yeah.
She is the one who contracts whatever it is.
Right. And it's like this.
Do that metaphor what you will.
Yes. But the charm is there. I mean, the charm is really there.
It really is, though. Because she's not, we say this, but she's also not, like, saying no.
Yes.
You know, it's not like she's like, leave me, stop.
No, she's into it.
She is not stop.
No, she's super into it. She, like, wants to. It's like she tells him. She even, like, one of the early times when in the early issues, like, she basically confesses. She says, I really like you. Like, I love you, but, like, I just can't. Like, I'm too scared. And so it's a really nice dimension because, like, all the flirtation and all the pushing from Gambit's side could be creepy if she was like, no, stop, leave me alone.
Yeah.
It's not, though. That's not been their relationship at all. It's been the opposite, actually. Like, Rogue really likes him. He knows it. She verbalizes it to him super early. I think people would be surprised how early this happens. It's like within, like, the first, like, I would say, like, 10 issues with them together, like, since their introduction. I think their actual introduction is technically, like, off screen in the early issues, off panel. There is a later Rogue and Gambit. There's several of those, but there's a Rogue and Gambit miniseries that kind of shows their first interaction, and it's literally her flying into his arms, and she's like over him, and they are like flirting. He's like, oh my god, who are you, what's your name, because like I'm in love with you, literally. Immediately. It's great. It's really charming. I think Gambit is a better match for Rogue
absolutely
than Bobby.
Like, even both the movie version and the comic book version, like, you couldn't have the two of them together because they wouldn't match up.
Yeah, I get that Rogue is a bit younger, so I'm trying to give some allowances for that. But
sure,
I think what really works.
Well, she's also not comic book Rogue.
Right.
She's timid.
Yes.
She's demure. She's brash in the comics. She's got that energy. She's got that.
Because she's older. But
Yeah.
the timidness, in some ways, I think they played it up for her. It's like around her powers. And it kind of makes sense why, if you're going to make her younger and more unsure, that those concerns that she has about her powers as an adult would be magnified as a teenager. I kind of see the line of how you draw from A to B.
Sure.
But I think Gambit is still really like a really good foil, and obviously the comic writers have agreed and the audiences have agreed, because this has been such a big
It's
thing
been going on for so long,
forever.
too. Yeah.
Because he is just not, he doesn't hesitate at all. Like whenever she is nervous or whatever, like there's a great line. I'm just going to start pulling lines out because I love this couple. But there's a great line where he's in love with her and she's unsure. And this is like when this is around the time where she goes to the Uncanny Avengers, then she dates Johnny Storm for a little bit. And she's starting to get control over her powers, but they're still not together. So Rogue in the comic books eventually gets a little bit more control of her powers. She can like kiss Gambit or whatever. And he tells her that I am not a stop in your life. I am the end station. I know that. You just don't know that yet. He says, so I will be here when you're ready, but the fact that you don't know that I'm like the end game means you're not ready. So we'll see you when you're done.
Love it.
And he just like lets her go and sends her away and is like, come back when you realize that I'm your man, basically. It's iconic. I mean, and I think that's the difference between Iceman, especially, and again, they're much younger in the movie.
Sure.
But Bobby Drake has never been, even in the comics, older Bobby Drake is not that kind of confident.
No.
Gambit has it's actually kind of the opposite character.
Yeah.
And like that kind of self-assuredness really matches with Rogue.
Right.
You know.
Iceman makes jokes because he's unsure.
Right.
You know, like he has Omega level powers and it takes him forever to realize
it. Takes Emma Frost to use his powers for him to realize it.
That's crazy.
That's what happens.
It shows you his lack of confidence and assuredness.
Mm-hmm. It's when they switch bodies, and then all of a sudden he's like, "I could do that." She's like, "Yeah, bro. What's your problem?" It's incredible. Like,
and now Rogue and Gambit are married, right? Like that happened somewhat ish recently, like within the last 10 years.
Yes, it has. I think it was 2018, maybe 19. Yeah. Mr. and Mrs. X is like the little line after they get married. They actually, I can't remember whose wedding it was, but there were some people who were going to get married. They back out of it, and then Rogue and Gambit are like, actually, let's just everybody's here. Everything's set up. Let's just get married.
It's 2018.
Oh, nailed it.
So, yeah.
It's great. I love them. Such a great couple. Highly recommend reading all. I mean, there's just start from the beginning.
That one I do need to read for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's funny. I actually have, there's a cover from X-Men number 24 that is like iconic of the two of them just embraced. And this was actually, I did not have a ton of X-Men comics. I didn't have a ton of comics as a kid. I had this issue.
Did you?
And I didn't realize till later how iconic that cover became.
I have that cover signed by the artist in my hallway.
So jealous.
Like a big blow up.
So jealous. So jealous.
Love them.
Do you want to power through a little bit of Chamber and Husk? Because this one I actually don't know much about.
I do. If you like Gambit and Rogue, if you like that kind of tension, this kind of like their mutant powers kind of get in the way, but it's a mix of both the mutant powers and their emotional state.
Yeah.
But you like not happy endings. Do I have a couple for you?
So Husk, we've discussed during the Toad episode,
yes.
is the younger sister of Cannonball who can rip away her own flesh
yes.
to uncover a different skin that she can control.
Yes, that is Paige Guthrie.
And Chamber is got a flame mouth. No, his interior is like made of flames.
Yeah, it's basically from his all of his internal organs and up to the top part of his lip, kind of, is a chamber of like psionic energy.
Yeah, but it looks like fire.
Yeah, it looks like
so
plasma.
He basically doesn't have a mouth.
He doesn't. He can only talk via telepathy.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, that would make it difficult.
Maybe I'm wrong. I want to... Did he get his lower jaw ripped off at one point?
He blew it off.
He blew it off. That's why he doesn't have a mouth.
He here's the backstory for Chamber.
Yeah, I'm sorry to sidetrack this, but it was one of those things where it's like, I think something happened to his lower jaw.
Yes. Well, the problem is that things have happened after M Day, like whatever. There's a lot of things that happen, but basically the original story of Chamber
That's what I want
is that his powers activate in his whole chest and jaw. He blows his own body apart.
Wow.
And in the process injures his girlfriend, who is Gail Edgerton, and he hurts her and like during like they're together.
So it almost similar thing to what happens to Rogue.
It's very similar. Yes.
Where it's like, I don't want to get close to someone because I hurt someone.
Literally hurt someone. There's like a whole thing with Gail. She ends up coming back as a villain for a little bit.
Back.
But yeah.
Cody came back, I think, for a bit
Yes,
too.
he did. That we talked about that too. But yeah, so Chamber is even more concerned about his mutation and his powers than even Rogue is. Chamber also doesn't pass as easily as Rogue does.
Right.
He wears like a little scarf like that covers his mouth at all times. In several instances, he's lived with the Morlocks because he doesn't.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. With Callisto. It's actually one of my favorite comic panels where Cyclops comes down to the Morlock tunnels and he literally like tells him to buzz off like in much harsher language and calls him out.
I think and Husk are both usually like they started as Generation X, right?
That's where their romance happened.
Okay.
So it's in Gen X when they have this romantic, and so they're teenagers. So it's really similar in that Paige Guthrie Husk is basically falls in love with him and he cannot handle it. Like he loves her, but doesn't handle it well. He like misconstrues everything she says as like, oh, she's embarrassed of me. Like his own self-doubt ruins their relationship. She has to leave. There's like a big break in Generation X where Husk leaves to go take care of her sick mom. And he kind of confesses and like draws a little, he's starting to get control over his powers. So there's like a little hope for them. And he draws her this little, he burns a heart into the paper, like to confess his love to her.
Yeah.
And she leaves, she comes back and she's so excited to see him. She like hugs him. This is like later in these issues. And he gives her the cold shoulder because he's just like, I don't know how to handle this. And he doesn't feel sure of himself. And he effectively torpedoes their relationship because he can't overcome his self-doubt.
That's heartbreaking.
Really
but that
sad.
is also kind of real, though.
Yes, so that's what I'm saying.
The thing.
If you like the concept, but you're like, oh, I don't want the happy ending, it's cheesy. Well, read it, Chamber and Husk.
It's funny that you describe that, and it's like you could say the same thing without mutant abilities.
Yes.
That is how relationships end sometimes. Is like, you're too good for me. We can't.
You're too hung up on your own self-hatred to have space in your heart to love somebody. And it's actually like pretty depressing. There's a lot. He gets super jealous. Like Chamber is not the most likable person. I'm going to say Generation X in general compared to like the original 5 and compared to some of the other generations. They're a little edgier. They're not like the most likable group of kids, but they do handle some of these same issues. They're not the New Mutants. The New Mutants are charming.
Yeah.
Generation X is like, they're kids that are struggling with the exception of Jubilee.
I mean, that's the 80s, the 90s.
Exactly.
Like, each generation tends to have their group of new mutants, if I may, and they all have a different vibe.
Yes.
And the Gen X is just, it's the 90s. So, of course, they're a little edgier.
They're super edgy and they're just like punk kids and they're like jerks and they like swear and like, you know.
But it's interesting because a lot of those groups end up like splitting and then just random characters show up in different teams.
Yeah. And I will say that Chamber nickname is he's Jonathan, and so you call him Jono. He ends up with Jubilee a lot. So when Jubilee has I can't remember the baby's name. I think it's Shogo. He in a lot of times
that's the whole thing. Jubilee as a baby. It's not hers.
It's not her baby, but I mean, it is her baby.
I mean,
now.
It's her baby. She adopted a baby.
Yeah.
She didn't have a baby. That's what I want to say.
Yes. Jono, in a lot of the newer Generation X issues, he's just like there a lot of times in the background, like just babysitting Shogo. Awesome. Like their connection, those Generation X kids that become teachers are kind of there. Those relationships are there, but it's not the same. Husk and Chamber do not get back together, as far as I'm aware.
No.
It's pretty...
I've never... You brought it up, and I was like, oh, I don't know that one.
Yeah, it's pretty heartbreaking. That's the original Generation X. You can't get all the issues on... Unlimited. They only go up to... like
Bummer.
40 something.
I mean, that's still quite a bit, though.
But there's 60 some, like more than that.
Oh, more than that?
Yeah, a little bit more than that.
60 more.
And then
like, well, that's not too bad.
Like more.
Oh, there's not even half?
Yeah.
Oh, that's rough.
It's a little rough. They jump, like they come back at 60, and I think there's like but there's like a big chunk missing.
Yeah.
It's a bummer, but you could read 5 through 7, 23, and 30. Those are the ones that have big sections of Paige and Jono, and that'll give you the vibe of how terrible
figure out what's going on.
That relationship is. It's really sad. I think like Chamber has just been really... He needs redemption. He needs a redemption arc, I think. He needs to like... I would say Chamber is still really not confident in himself, and he didn't get a ton of play in the Krakoa era. Yeah. So like I feel like we missed out on him for that too.
I don't know if I finished it, but I definitely read some issue where he was like hanging out with a pop star, but he also wasn't confident, like what you're saying.
They broke up because of like she gets kidnapped by the anti-mutant force by her manager, and there was like a rumor that he got her pregnant, so that's why she gets kidnapped. It's silly.
A whole thing.
But the point is that it's like Chamber again, like any sort of like feeling of inadequacy, he just can't deal with it in relationships.
Yeah.
He just leaves.
Bummer.
Yeah. There it is. Right. Well, thank you for listening to Uncanny X-Minutes. I'm Sasha.
I'm producer James.
And we'll see you for the next 10.